Hi, I'm Steve. I have an eidetic memory. Here's a perfect recollection of Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Captain America, the Winter Soldier opens with Steve Rogers repeatedly running up behind Sam Wilson and spanking him as he runs by.
On your left. On your left.
Don't say it. Don't you say
On
it.
your left.
Come on!
Turns out Sam was in the armed forces too, so he gets it and thinks it's hilarious, but warns Steve that a lot of stuff has happened since World War II and he probably shouldn't do it to random strangers anymore. Cap goes on a mission for S.H.I.E.L.D., but on the way there, Black Widow makes fun of him for not dating anyone to the point where he decides to just end it all. The super serum lets him survive the fall, however, and disappointed at science robbing him of the ultimate choice, Steve swims to a nearby ship and takes his murderous incel rage out on the unsuspecting security force, swapping between acts of unspeakable violence and clear, desperate attempts for comforting human touch. Steve finally gets to the last security guard who tries his best to escape. As punishment for making Steve chase him down, Steve denies him a quick death and decides to toy with him. It's really a brilliant way to introduce us to how Steve's 1940s values don't translate to the current day, and how a man once thought a hero can be seen as a monster when the light of modernity is shone upon him. When they get back to the Triskelion, Nick Fury chews out Cap, telling him that if this happens 7 or 8 more times, he's gonna have to think about riding him up. And to back up what he's saying, he takes him into the basement of S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters to show him the contents of an average American's gun cabinet. Steve decides it's time for some self-reflection, but since he's from 1900s man times and doesn't know what self-reflection is because he's never been to therapy, he goes to the museum, which is the World War II equivalent of Googling yourself, and lets them tell him how awesome he is. Awash with new confidence, he decides to get out there and date, but visiting hours are over at the local nursing home before he can seal the deal. Back at the Triskelion, Nick Fury, and old, has forgotten his password again and gets locked out of his computer. Steve finally watches Fight Club, which was on his Things I've Missed list, and goes to an ascending bowel cancer support group to make himself feel better. This isn't a guide to life, Steven. This isn't a guide to life, Steven. Oh God. Who am I really talking to here? Captain America? Or myself? Am I just using my humor as a way to outlet my emotions and deflect them at the same time? As a way to show the world who I am and simultaneously laugh it off like it's nothing? Why do I do this? Why do I put my sincere feelings into my comedy and then get upset when people laugh? What am I doing? Tacos! Later, Nick is ghost riding the whip when the cops see him and have a totally reasonable reaction. That night, Steve sneaks into Nick's apartment to intimidate him into not giving him a write-up, but things take a turn for the weird when Nick propositions him. Steve is about to say yes when it's revealed that Nick's apartment is lined with that defective Chinese drywall from 2006, which, if you don't remember, had an issue with exploding at high speed and violently murdering consumers. It was doubly bad because drywall is naturally occurring and isn't technically sentient, so there was no one to sue. Steve is saddened by his diminishing romantic prospects and blows off some steam by playing frisbee with his old pal Robert Smith. Rumlow tells Cap he's needed back at HQ, but first it's snack o'clock. Holy shit, they have Nutter Butters. Turns out S.H.I.E.L.D. is forcing Cap to go to a psychiatrist, played by Robert Redford. The shrink uses hypnosis to induce a trance state in Steve, who recounts a recurring dream where he's locked in a glass case of emotion surrounded by fellow soldiers and sweaty accountants, who all try to hold him down and stick things in his dirty circle. When the doctor tells Steve to imagine himself breaking free, Steve says the magic post-2001 no-no words about wanting to crash a plane when he gets out, so the doctor assembles a team of the world's mightiest psychiatrists and big pharma, known as the Prescribers, to take down Steve's PTSD. Steve gets hungry and goes back for more Nutter Butters, but the vending machine is all out because Black Widow bought the last pack. Black Widow tells Steve that she ate them all and feels super fat now.
Bye-bye bikinis.
And Steve agrees.
Yeah, I bet you look terrible now.
Natasha has heard about Steve's problems with trauma and suggests trying video games as a way to blow off steam. Steve puts on some nerdy glasses to get into character, but he forgets the catgirl ears and foxtail butt plug, so it doesn't work. Besides, Natasha only plays simple browser-based flash games, so Steve isn't really compelled, and the only thing left to do is for Steve to gain some perspective by going to the most depressing place in the world and meeting the world's ultimate basement dweller in the original streamer, Arnim Zola. Steve can't stand seeing such a pathetic creature continue to suffer and blows him up, but has gained the perspective he desperately needed. He now knows he needs to expand his circle of support, so he can have more people to drag into his problems. So he knocks on Sam's door. Ding dong, bullshit delivery. This does not make Robert Smith happy, because he knows if Steve stops being depressed, he won't have a constant source of song lyrics anymore, so he puts in a call and joins the prescribers. Steve, Natasha, and Sam kidnap Jasper Sitwell, who reveals to them Big Pharma's big plan, to continue being Big Pharma. The gang is driving to take them down when Robert Smith catches up to them on Fascination Street, but they escape with the help of Maria Hill and go to a dam. You see, the dam is symbolic of the barriers Steve has built up as an emotional coping mechanism. The relationships he's failed to form since his resurrection are on the other side of the dam. He sits atop the concrete wall, peering hesitantly over at the people he could let in, the love he could have in his life once again, if only he'd let the toxic water of internalized trauma commingle with the cool, flowing waters of interpersonal intimacy. Okay? Anyway, Steve has a flashback thinking of the old days with Robert Smith, and for some reason has a burning desire to walk through a forest. At the same time, Robert Smith has a flashback to his 80s heyday during the Cold War, and that time he played in Russia and an angry communist mob ripped his arm off. He gets super angry when he sees Nick Fury looking at pictures of you. Now it's time for the climax. Robert Smith and the prescribers have created a fleet of helicarriers to shoot pills in people's mouths from space. This triggers Steve's future shock because his primitive caveman brain thinks that boats aren't supposed to fly, planes are supposed to fly. And if boats fly and planes float, then the categories are meaningless, and so he and Sam go to take down the airships. Cap and Robert fight, and Cap tries to convince Robert to go to therapy and let out his feelings, but Robert refuses because boys don't cry. Cap eventually comes out on top. Farmer Bro gets a prescription for dead. The boats are returned to their natural habitat, Natasha becomes a lobbyist, and the gang has a funeral for Nick Fury's brother, Nicholas, who died off screen. Wait, what? Go to therapy, folks.